stipulation of being an accredited network is it's within 18 months of acquiring, correct? All of the PetWell clinics have to be accredited by AHA?
Yeah, so a big part of this is if you're not bought into the value of AHA accreditation in your hospitals, then network accreditation just wouldn't make sense. And so we kind of took that as a given. If you're going to be network accredited, then your hospitals need to go through the process of becoming accredited themselves. It also kind of goes toward our mission of having more hospitals across the country become AHA accredited. Again, we just think that will elevate the level of care, across the profession. And network accreditation is meant to be supportive of that goal.
I had the pleasure of helping a clinic start from non-AHA accreditation to AHA accreditation. I'd always been associated with clinics that had previously been AHA accredited, like Independent Hill, which we just did we had our reaccreditation last week. So it's
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It's now our 26th year, which is pretty cool. But being a part of that, like even a company or a hospital that's been through it so many times, every time you go through it, it's still a little, because there's always updates. So there's always something that you can improve and you can change and you can modify. And there's probably a dozen just protocol changes that we made solely just from the reaccreditation process, like going through and reviewing all the standards again. But it was a completely different world, starting from a hospital that had never been AHA accredited to get them to that point. And I'm sure that's something that you hear fairly frequently if you are purchasing a clinic that is not AHA accredited. So when you are purchasing these clinics, is that kind of in the back of your mind, whether consciously or subconsciously, like the amount of work that's going to require from a business standpoint, but also just from a medical standard standpoint as well?
It is. I mean, no question that factors into the investment that we're going to make in that hospital post acquisition. And we certainly have an eye on that, in the process of determining which hospitals are going to be a good fit for us.
When I thought of another thing, kind of like Veterinary Tinder, but it's a show. And it's based on like that Gordon Ramsay's, like the 24 hours to hell and back, which I've never actually seen. But, the gist is he goes into a restaurant and, redesigns it. I feel like we could do that with a non-AHA accredited hospital. But it couldn't be 24 hours. That would be insane. But we could probably do it in a month. We go in.
That's on the next episode of explaining.
Exactly. Yeah, we go in over a month long. Although I feel like that would, on audio, it just sound like a lot of grunting as you clean and and then a lot of clicking as you type. But I feel like it might make good video if you had like something exciting while you're doing all the typing for the protocols. But I think it would be fun, because when you're cleaning out these clinics, and because veterinarians are inherently like hoarders, I mean, we all have a little bit of hoarding in us because we never know when we might need to use something, and you find things.
Not every veterinarian.
Okay, most. The ones that I've worked with. But you find things that no one's used in 30 years that are like back in a cupboard, and you ask people, why do you have this? Well, I might need it, I might need it in 30 more years. So it's kind of cool because you could also, as a sideshow, have like, what's the one, the antique roadshow, where you could find out if the medical equipment that hasn't been used in 30 years is worth anything. I feel like I got a lot of ideas. Eventually one will stick.
Well, I think the best relic we've found in our journey thus far is a typewriter for prescriptions.
What?
That was still being used.
Still being used? That's impressive. Tom Hanks would like that. He apparently collects typewriters. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't. We should call him and let him know that we've got one for him.
He actually made an app on where you can mimic different typewriters. I don't really know the point, except that basically makes it sound like you're typing on a typewriter when you type on your phone.
Okay.
But it's Tom Hanks, so I feel like everyone bought it anyway.
Well, Dr. McFadden, what about that process of reaccreditation at Independent Hill? Do you think was valuable for your team?
I think this time because this is my second accreditation at Independent Hill, and the first one that I did, I just started maybe, I think it was 4 months before. So, I was still feeling them out. They were still feeling me out. So it was completely different from that perspective. But the first time we did, the most fun was we had a day, and it was voluntary on a Sunday when the hospital was closed. Whoever wanted to come in, and it was off the clock, and we had a big, pizza party, and we cleaned. We just like deep cleaned the whole hospital and made it smell and look extra pretty. And that was a lot of fun because, it was the first time whenever you interact with your team members and they're not in scrubs, it always seems different. Like in my head, for some reason, they always wear scrubs nonstop. And so whenever I see them in jeans, it's very confusing at first. But there's something about that, like, group cleaning that's very cathartic for everybody. But this year, I basically took every protocol and made it a section, like paired it with a section of the hospital. So like the pharmacy protocol was paired with our pharmacy and the hallway and the exam rooms, and everyone had to sign up. And I wrote the protocols, but the person who signed up for that area would have to present the key points of the protocols to the rest of the clinic at a staff meeting. And they were responsible for deep cleaning and reorganizing their section. And the rule of thumb was, if we haven't used it in 3 years, put it aside or toss it, and I'm sure it's fine. But if you're worried, like if it looks expensive, ask us. And it was just especially for a lot of the legacy employees, because we have a lot of people that have been there over 10, 15 years. It was so exciting for them to throw stuff away that they've wanted to throw away for 10, 15 years that we've never used. But the amount of like pride people put into cleaning and organizing their area was amazing. But the amount of energy and pride they put into presenting their protocol was like crazy to me, because I was like, cliff notes, everybody, like super fast, because I don't do anything little, right? Like, these protocols are like 10, 30 pages long, depending on the topic. So I was like 1 page max, like 5 minutes. And everybody came in with like 5, 6 pages. Like Dee did a PowerPoint presentation. Claudia made this like trifold, like science fair project thing. And it was just so cool to see them really, make it their own. Because my theory was, if you say, here's 150 pages of protocols, no one's going to read it. But if everybody has a protocol or two and they read it and then they share that knowledge, at least the new information is disseminated. But it was just really cool to see how much like pride they took. And I just said, hey, in between, work, if you have downtime, you can do it. And everyone took it home and they typed everything and they had all these handouts, and it was really cool. That the total nerd in me really liked how much everyone kind of took to make that their own.
Well, that's the value of accreditation, right? I mean, if you didn't have to become reaccredited, you might not ever go through an exercise like that. But that, what you just described is, it's empowering of your team. And I mean, can you think of a better team building exercise that pulls everyone together around, this is best medicine for Independent Hill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then later because we did that over 2 staff meetings, like to do the presentations. And then that was about a month before we had our reaccreditation. And all during that month, you would hear people say, that's not in the new protocol. We've changed it. This is how we're doing it. And it was neat to hear them self-correct each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't aggressive. It was just, I remember, I wrote that. I did that Cliff Notes. I remember how we're doing it now. So it was pretty cool. I think people got a lot more out of that than they did the first time. Just because it, like you said, it was more empowering. They were able to contribute more.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. I greatly appreciate you taking time to talk with me. But I had one more question.
Sure.
If you will indulge me. So I know that you and David have known each other for a long time. How did you guys meet? Is that a story you can tell on air?
It is. I can tell it. I can tell it on air with some care. So David and I both grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and that's why we talk so slow and mumble a little bit. But so we both grew up in Birmingham. We met because my best friend in high school started dating Strauss's younger sister. So what turned into what started as a casual friendship really really kind of took root. And I think when we were in college and just coming out of college, we really connected more around kind of similar ways to think about business. Became closer and closer friends as a result.
Well, and now little Evelyn is going to have a BFF soon, right?
I know, waiting to find out the name of David's incoming daughter. And
yeah. How's fatherhood treating you?
It's been great. We're 6.5 weeks in, and just feel very, very blessed.
Well, I'll let you get back to her.
How is James?
He's good. He talks a lot now. He's funny. It's neat seeing their personalities develop. Like this morning, we had an argument to get him dressed, and the only way I could get him to wear clothes was if he wore his short sleeve button-up shirt with a long sleeve under it, which was fine. But then Dad has to wear his shirt that's very similar with a long sleeve that's very similar. So JJ's very particular that Dad looks like him most of the time. And the other day I could only get him to wear pants if he was allowed to wear shorts over them. And I was like, it's cool, man. You can wear shorts and pants.
Yep. Whatever works.
We've come a long way from not being able to lift your own head,
Both is better than none, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But thank you for asking. But he's good.
Cool.
And Evelyn's doing well?
Evelyn's great.
Well, thank you again. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. And
thanks, Dr. McFadden.
I want to thank David and David again for joining me on Vetsplaining to help share the story of how PetWell came to be. And now we're going to jump right into Pet Tales. And first, we're going to hear about Tug the Pug, and then we're going to hear about Murphy the miniature schnauzer.
If there was a word to describe Tug, that would be loyalty. I mean, if that always rings true, not with just his humans, but also with his colleagues, and probably the story that warms our heart is that Pugsley, who is another pug rescue, that he passed several years ago due to cancer, but when he was at the hospital at the Hope Center, one of the last nights, we were able to bring Tug in to see him. And we got a separate room, and the best thing that they love doing is greenies at 7:00 every night.
Oh, the greenie hour.
Exactly, and they would just run and devour it and then go lay down. So we thought, okay, we'll bring Pugsley a greenie and Tug, so that seems like old times. And so we were in that private room. And we gave it to both of them. Pugsley quickly ate his, but Tug kept on dropping his, and he kept on giving it to him, and then he would drop it back down and would not eat it. And after like 3 or 4 times, we were going, what's wrong? And he just was waiting for Pugsley to finish his, and Pugsley came over and ate his right next to him. Aww. And it was just the sweetest thing that he knew that his friend was not doing well. And so and those two are peas in a pod, and you figure as soon as we brought him home, we gave him a greenie, he ate it, and he said all's good. But yeah, he definitely misses Pugsley as well as his other colleague Milo. Yeah, he's a trooper. I mean, as far as the loyalty that he shows us, I mean, it's just he's a great example for us as far as what is loyalty. That he is true and true.
All right, Murphy was a schnauzer. He was not toy. He was a miniature schnauzer. Well, we went out one day. We had him for a good many years, and we had a female also, Penny. We went out one day and came back, and I thought there was a big hole in the floor. Murphy had opened every cabinet, the refrigerator. He had dumped olive oil and Worcestershire sauce, which made it look like a big hole in the kitchen floor. And it was a mess. So we thought, that's just a fluke. Well, no. Pray tell, here he comes again. We go out again, and next thing I know, the refrigerator door's open. And about